Okay, great. I'll just wait for the clock to kick over.
Hi, this is Lena. So if you're here for the second item, we're gonna keep our cameras off and mics muted until the first item's finished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it's 7 o'clock, so I'm assuming we're recording and we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll go ahead and call to order this hearing of May 17th, 2021 for the City of Tigard. My name is Joe Turner. I'm the city's hearings officer. I'll begin with some brief announcements and a summary of the process that will follow so you'll understand how you can participate in the hearing tonight. I start by saying I am not a city employee. I am licensed as an attorney and trained as a planner. I serve under contract to the City Council. I say that so you know you're getting a somewhat independent review of the two applications before me tonight. My role as the hearings officer is to conduct public hearings and make decisions about certain land use matters in the City of Tigard. In making those decisions, I am required to apply the city's existing laws. I am not a policymaker. I don't have the authority to vary from or change the laws. If you think that the laws need to be changed, you can work with City Council and Planning Commission to do that. But state law requires that this application be judged based on the laws in effect when the application was filed. As a hearings officer, I'm to provide an unbiased decision maker. I believe I am unbiased with regard to these applications. I have not had any pre-hearing contact with any of the parties regarding the substance of the applications, and I don't have any interest in the subject properties or any of the surrounding properties. But you have the right to challenge my impartiality, to argue that I'm biased in one way or another, and you could do that when it's your opportunity to testify about a particular application. Procedure will follow. There are two items on the agenda tonight. We'll do them one at a time in the order that they're listed on the agenda. The first one is the Fanno Creek Trail. The second one is the Carolyn Moor Writer's House. I will start each case by asking staff to summarize the staff report for that case. Then the applicant for that case will have the opportunity to present their proposal, respond to the staff report. Then I will take testimony from anybody who wants to testify in support of a particular application, and then anyone who wants to testify in opposition or with questions or concerns. That should cover everybody that wants to say something about the application. You fall into one of those categories. Once everyone has had an initial opportunity to testify about the application, I will give staff and the applicant the opportunity to respond to the testimony that was offered. If that response includes any new evidence, I will give everyone a chance to respond to the new evidence. Otherwise, I'll close the public portion of the hearing and announce what I'm going to do. Anyone with an interest in this application may offer relevant oral or written testimony, but testimony should be relevant to the applicable approval criteria, which are set out in the staff reports for each application. The staff reports are available on the city's website. Testimony should be relevant to the approval criteria. I said that. Please don't repeat testimony offered by yourself or earlier witnesses. I take good notes and I can review the tape of the hearing if I missed anything. It is important that you make your best case to me. My decisions are subject to appeal to City Council, but the Council may decide the appeal based on the record before me. So if you feel it's important that myself or any future decision maker knows something about this application, you need to make sure it gets into the record before me. In order to preserve your right to appeal, you or someone expressly representing you must testify orally or in writing before the close of the record. And in order to raise an issue on appeal, someone must have raised that issue before me with enough specificity that people can understand what the issue is. If you feel you need more time to prepare, you can ask me to hold the record open or continue the hearing. If I hold the record open, you'll have an opportunity to submit additional written testimony and evidence before I make a decision. If I continue the hearing, we can come back and do this again at a later date. Given the limitations of these online hearings, it's been my practice to hold the record open for 1 week after the close of the hearing, just in case people have issues logging on or connecting somehow. So I will hold the record open for a minimum of 1 week for additional testimony and evidence. I will hold it open for an additional week after that for the applicant to respond and submit a final argument, which the applicant can waive if nothing is submitted during the first week or if they want to respond earlier. But if anybody wants me to hold the record open for a longer period of time or continue the hearing, you must make that request before the close of the hearing tonight for that particular item. In addition, my decisions must comply with state law that requires that the city issue a final written decision on these applications, including any appeal to city council within 120 days after these applications were filed. So there's some limit to how long I can continue the hearings or hold the record open. When you testify, please begin by stating your name and your full mailing address. Please spell your last name so I get it right. And if you represent someone else, please say so. As far as the ability, how we participate in this electronic hearing, it's my understanding that city staff is answering the phone for call-in witnesses, and I will ask them to patch people in one at a time when it's opportunity for public testimony. But that concludes my introduction. We'll go ahead and open the hearing, and the first item on the agenda, which is the Fanno Creek Trail improvements at Scholls Ferry Road, case file SLR 2021-00002. Ms. Linder.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Agnes Linder, Associate Planner. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the item before you tonight is the Fanno Creek Trail improvements at Scholls Ferry Road. The project location is located along the Fanno Creek Trail, which is this dotted dashed gray line. Specifically the area in this red circle, which is the trail that goes underneath Scholls Ferry Road into the city of Beaverton. The trail is within a city-owned tract, and the zoning is Parks and Recreation. Properties to the south, east, and west are zoned residential, both R4.5 and R12. And as I mentioned, the city of Beaverton is to the north of Scholls Ferry Road. So the application is for a sensitive lands type 3 review. The type 3 is required for any work that happens within a FEMA floodway. The applicant is requesting improvements to the existing trail that's again located beneath Scholls Ferry Road. The improvements include raising and realigning the trail. These improvements will reduce the period of time that the trail is inundated by the flooding of Fanno Creek. So this slide just shows the site plan that was included in the application package. It's oriented to where north is here. And then this just shows the scope of the project limits, which is pretty much underneath the existing right-of-way of Scholls Ferry Road. And then this is a elevation plan that shows the existing and proposed grades of the trail. So the applicant provided sufficient detailed information on how all the applicable criteria and standards are met or will be met through the conditions of approval. The proposal actually increases the overall flood storage function by removing a net of 3.1 cubic yards of fill. And lastly, the proposal will not result in any increase in flood level during the base flood discharge. The applicant did submit a zero rise certification with their application. So with that, staff has reviewed the proposed plans and recommends approval of the sensitive lands review, subject to the conditions of approval that are provided in the staff report. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lindor. I don't have any questions. Is the applicant here represented for this application?
Yes, this is Matt Brennan with Clean Water Services.
Thanks.
Thank you. I will go ahead and share my screen. I'm an engineer with Clean Water Services, and I also have on this call a consultant working on this project, Casey Story, who is with David Evans and Associates. So I'll just provide, this will just be a brief description, giving a little bit of context and explanation of what it is that we're trying to do here. Here's a picture of the underpass at Scholls Ferry Road, and
You're not sharing your screen yet, Mr. Brennan.
Oh,
That's what you intended.
I was intending that. Hold on just a moment, please.
There we go.
All right, that's better. Thanks. Okay, so here's a photo showing the problem, which is the underpass of the Fanno Creek Trail at Scholls Ferry Road, where the trail takes a dip to a low elevation, and water will sometimes periodically get up onto the trail and making it difficult to pass for the users of the trail. The reason that Clean Water Services is involved in this issue is that we work in partnership with the city's Parks Department to manage vegetation in the wetland in Englewood Park just downstream. We also manage some of the wetland vegetation upstream, working with the Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District. And some of these conditions where the low points on the trail get inundated with water are aggravated by some of the wildlife use, primarily beaver dam building activities. And so we try to work with our partners to minimize and manage some of those nuisance conditions that the trail users experience. And so the inundation at this crossing sometimes encourages users to go up onto Scholls Ferry Road, and some will try to cross that busy street at unsignaled locations, which is very unsafe. And so we're working with the city and many other partners. The city of Tigard is taking the lead on a planning process to get an at-grade signaled crossing for trail users at that location. But what the Clean Water Services leadership would like to do is get something done in the meantime that can be done under more of a short time frame to help keep the trail clear going underneath the road and making sure that stays passable more often than it has. Here's another photo of the trail underneath the bridge. This shows it at lower water, where you can see the passable conditions. So the project elements are a new concrete pathway surface that's at about 10 inches higher than the low point of the existing trail. Some signage for low headroom conditions and warning strips along the trail surface itself to help alert users to the low head space. We'll replace the fence that runs along the trail underneath the bridge, and then during construction have a real focus on protecting the stream from any contamination that would happen during construction. This shows a schematic of the cross section of the trail, showing that the existing asphalt path, we will be removing a portion of that adjacent to the stream, and then just adding a concrete layer above that but essentially shifting the trail a little bit closer to the abutment of the bridge, giving the creek a little bit more spaced. As far as schedule goes, we have this plan for this summer, hoping to get started in July. The duration of construction could be as high as 10 weeks. We're going to work with our contractor to try to minimize the disruption to trail users and try to get that down as low as we can. And we will be working with both the City of Tigard on the south and Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District on the north to make sure that we have a good signed detour route throughout the period of construction. And that is all I have for my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online who wanted to testify about this application? That's a question for city staff.
There are no callers right now.
Okay. Anything further from city staff? Yes. It's Linda.
Nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, as I noted, I'm planning to hold the record open for a week. I assume do you want to waive the applicant's right to submit a final argument if nothing is submitted during that first week? Okay. Let me grab my calendar. I'll give you some specific dates. So today is May 17th. I'll hold the record open until May 24th at 5 o'clock for anybody to submit additional written comments about this application and evidence. If nothing is submitted by 5 o'clock on the 24th, I'll ask staff to let me know and I'll just close the record and go ahead and issue my decision. If anything is submitted, the applicant will have until, I guess, the 1st of June, because Memorial Day, the May 31st, which is the week later, is a holiday. So I'll hold it open for 8 days until June 1st for the applicant to respond and submit a final argument if anything is submitted. Otherwise, I'll close it on the 24th. Anything anybody wants to submit has to be physically received by the city by 5 o'clock on the 24th, or the applicant by 5 o'clock on the 1st of June. But you can submit anybody who wants to submit something and submit it to Ms. Lindor. But that concludes the hearing on that item. I'll take just a moment, switch staff and switch staff reports, and we'll continue with the next item. There it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, gentlemen. This is the hearing for conditional use permit 2021-00001, the Carolyn Moor Writers House. Just have to write down which one we're working on here. And Ms. Smith, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. Let's see. I will share my screen. Good evening. My name is Lena Smith, and I'm an assistant planner in the Tigard Planning Division. Tonight, I'll be presenting on a conditional use permit application for the Carolyn Moor Writers House. The subject site is made up of 2 properties that are about 9.5 acres in size, located near the intersection of Walnut and Gardy. These properties were originally created as part of a land partition that was approved by the city in June 2020, involving the 2 properties to the north. So it was originally all one large site and then was divided up to 1, 2, 3 parcels and then an open space tract. The subject site and surrounding properties are zoned R4.5 or low density residential. Here's a closer look at the site. The western property is currently occupied by an existing single detached house, existing accessory structure. There's a long driveway with the circular turnaround. The driveway connects to Walnut Street via an existing 20-foot wide access easement over the property to the north. This is the only vehicular access point for the site, and that will not be changing with this application. The site's only public street frontage is here to the west off of Big Leaf Drive. but there's no vehicular access point there, and that will also not be changing with the proposal. The eastern property is a private open space tract that contains sensitive lands, including wetlands, streams, and a clean water services vegetated corridor. It's also subject to a storm sewer easement over its entirety to benefit the city of Tigard, and is also subject to a storm sewer, surface water drainage, and detention easement over its entirety to clean water services. So the applicant tonight is Portland Community College, and they request a conditional use permit to utilize the subject properties for a writers in residence program, where up to 2 writers at a time would live and work on the site. The use is considered to be a college use, which is a conditional use in the R4.5 zone. PCC does not propose any classes on the site, any events that are open to the public, or any physical changes to the site or the existing structures on site. Should any physical or programming changes be proposed in the future, they must be approved through additional land use review. This application also fulfills a condition of approval from when the properties were originally partitioned. The condition states that a land division or conditional use permit approval is required prior to use or development of the subject site. As detailed in the staff report, the proposal complies with all applicable standards and requirements in the Community Development Code of the City of Tigard. Specifically, the proposal meets all conditional use approval criteria in section 18-740-050. Because the proposed use is so limited in its scope, and because the applicant doesn't propose any physical changes to the site, the proposal will essentially look, appear, and function very similar to a residential use in the existing residential neighborhood. Accordingly, staff finds the proposal is compatible with surrounding properties, public facilities, and sensitive lands, and does not anticipate any adverse impacts from the proposal. Staff recommends that the hearings officer find that the proposed conditional use permit meets all applicable approval criteria as outlined in the staff report. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this application subject to a condition of approval. This is regarding payment of a tree inventory fee prior to occupancy, and this is a requirement from our tree code and our urban forestry manual. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I don't have any questions at this point. I will note the city received a comment from a neighbor. I'll let the applicant respond to that if they want to, but I think your testimony addressed their issues as well.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here represented?
Yes, we are.
There we go.
There's 3 of us here tonight.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you. Yes.
My name is Rebecca Auken. I'm the planning manager with Portland Community College, and I'm here with Chris Hagerman from Book and Group, who is working on the land use side for the college, as well as Justin Rigamonti, who's overseeing the college programming. And we'll all give you a very quick overview of what's happening at the Carolyn Moor Writers Residence. It was in 2019 when PCC was gifted the 9 acres of Carolyn Moor's 13-acre estate. The remaining 4 acres that front Walnut were gifted to the heirs of Carolyn Moor. As Lena mentioned, the home will be used by the college as a writer's residence, so writers can live and hone their craft. We sincerely appreciate the natural setting of the home, and we intend to keep this sanctuary-like character to the property. The neighbors may have noticed that recently the college did some landscaping and major site work. We recently contracted with a landscape firm that will be on site for years to come, and will give you some idea of the quality and care PCC will take with this home and its property. We'll also have some home repairs over this summer, so we can have our first writer in the house by early fall. And with that, and for more detail on the actual program, I'll turn it over to Justin.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Well, it really is very simple. I think between Lena and Rebecca, we've explained it, the essence of it. This fall, we'll start with some very exciting national writers that will come to the house, and they're going to treat it as a residence for a couple months, and they'll be there very quietly. It really won't be any change from when Carolyn lived here and wrote, and that's exactly what they'll be doing. And just as any resident will, of a house occasionally have guests over. A small handful of students might occasionally go to the house to be mentored by the writers, but we don't plan to use this for any classes. We don't plan to hold any kind of large events there. So it will be a succession of 3 to 8 week terms where, again, poets and nonfiction and fiction writers from across the country will come and stay and find sanctuary. I was out there on Friday, and it's a gorgeous place to sit and meditate for a while. And we're really excited. I represent the Hearts Council at PCC, which is Humanities and Arts, and we're so excited about what this will mean for PCC students to be able to be in proximity to these writers and have them come and visit their campuses, and for the city of Tigard too, just to have these great writers nearby working on their fantastic new pieces of literature.
Thank you, Mr. Rigamonti. What was your title again? I missed that part.
My title is Project Lead for the Hearts Council.
Is it, how do you spell Hearts?
It's HART. It's a S. It's an acronym for Humanities and Arts.
I figured, but one.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's Arts.
and that's within the Portland Community College system. So
great. Thank you. Mr. Hagerman, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, very quickly, I'll just state that, as discussed, this program is only going to be for up to 2 people at a time. Activities are going to be identical in appearance to a private residence. The letter from a neighbor was primarily concerned with potential future access, either for pedestrians or vehicles from Big Leaf Drive, which abuts the site, provides the legal frontage for the site. There is no indication that PCC is interested in creating that access, or that the city will require it. It runs counter to the program that PCC would like to operate. And since the trip generation for this use will actually probably be less than a single family residence, there's no incentive for the city to require that type of access as well. So we're really happy with the staff report. We want to thank city staff and make ourselves available for any questions you might have. Other than that, we'll draw it to a cool close.
Okay. The only question I had was, is the site? It sounds like the site will be is available for public to walking pedestrian, just to walk the site. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We have no problems with people walking the site.
Okay. That was the only questions I had. Thank you. Is there anybody who wants to testify about this application?
We have 2 callers on the line. The first is Umesh.
Okay. Sir, can you give your hi? Can you give us your name and mailing address, please?
Yep, sure. My name is Umesh Dhond. Last name spelled D as in David, H-O, and as in Nancy, D as in David. Mailing address is 13171 Southwest Raptor Place, Tigard 97223.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead and you can go ahead and testify now.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hey, as a neighbor, we have about, living on Raptor Place. It's a great opportunity to have great writers come and stay at PCC, this facility, the writers program. We're really excited. The only situation here is that the Big Leaf Drive is the only access to about 30 or so units on Raptor Place. And the parking that is limited on the public street, Big Leaf Drive, is the only overflow parking for about 30 residents and about one spot for 2 residents on Raptor Place. So I understand that this PCC facility will have road access from Walnut Drive. Is that correct? Walnut Street?
Yes.
So yeah, so that access, that easement access that connects this property and the circular driveway will be to Walnut Street, not to Big Leaf Drive, right?
Correct.
So we just want to have that. I'd be so much more assured if that were put in the final city papers that there's no plan to open up a street access to the property from Big Leaf Drive. And secondly, if we also can have, I mean, this is just a request. I don't know what the legality is, and it would really help us. And currently, there is no walking access to the house from the backside of the property that abuts Big Leaf Drive. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but I'll ask the applicant to clarify when we come back to them.
Sure. So the thing is that if we would like to keep it that way, so visitors are encouraged to just access it from Walnut Street, and then they don't park on Big Leaf Drive and then just walk to the house from there.
Okay.
So those were the 2 main questions, mostly around the limited parking we have on Big Leaf Drive. We couldn't provide parking on Raptor Place because the roads are too small and there's a fire hazard. So we actually tow residents if they park on Raptor Place.
Okay.
So that's it.
Thank you, sir. As far as the road access from, wrong street, I was going to say Walnut. Is it Walnut? No, Walnut's to the north. I'm sorry, Mr.
Big Leaf Drive.
Thank you. Thank you. The road access from Big Leaf Drive, the applicant has no plans for that at this point, so I will not approve any vehicular access from Big Leaf Drive. This in the future, at some point, I can't prohibit it from happening in the future. In order for that to happen, it would require additional city review and approval. But with this application, there is no vehicular access proposed from Big Leaf Drive. I keep writing the wrong street here in my notes. So let me fix that. But as far as pedestrian traffic, those there's no. It's my understanding, and I'll ask the applicant to confirm. But there's no pedestrian pathway there. But as the applicant noted, the public is allowed to walk the property. And Big Leaf Drive being a public street, I can't prohibit people from parking there either. But so people could park there and walk the property. They could also park on Walnut and walk in from there. But there's nothing there no signage, no formal pathway, nothing else proposed that would encourage people to do that. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Doan. I'll ask the applicant to confirm all of that as well and expand on it if necessary. I understand we have one more person who wants to testify.
We do. The next caller is Matt Frazier.
Mr. Frazier?
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
I'm Matt Frazier. You can hear me? Okay, good. Okay, I live on, me and my family live on 12567 Southwest Quail Creek Lane. If you look at the vicinity map that was brought up earlier that showed the property in gray, and you go just a little bit south of that, there's a cul-de-sac for Quail Creek Lane. And our property is the one that is facing the property in question, right across the green space, across the creek.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have a good view of it, especially in the wintertime when the trees don't have any leaves. So I know we've talked about that there's no trails there. There might be no declared trails, but there is a trail that leads from Gardy south of Caffield Court, right? So not close to Big Leaf, but further south, south of Caffield Court. And it goes until it reaches the property, and then there's like a no trespassing sign. And really the trail's still there, even though it's probably undeclared. It's just enough people have walked it. And then on the other side, it just goes along the tree line there on the other side from me, from the creek. And then from there, it goes up to, there's another trail, which is clearly a trail that goes from the property to Parkdale Avenue. So the part on the property is probably undeclared, and there's no trespassing signs, but nevertheless, since it's connecting someplace in, close to Gardy to all the way up to public, all the way up to Parkdale Avenue, it is used and people walk there. And I've done it myself. But right now there's a no trespassing sign. And so you did mention that that there would be, while there's not going to be any maintained trail on the property, that it would be free for the public to walk on. And so I think that answers my question. So I'm improved this, by the way. I mean, to look across and see that versus see a bunch of houses, like higher density house, I'd rather look apart and still see what we see right now. So I'm totally approve it. And I think from what you said earlier, that part would be open for walking. So basically people could walk from like where Gardy is, south of Cafield Court, up to Parkdale Avenue, and going through there, and that would be allowed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then, yeah. So in that case, I approve. Actually, it sounds like a pretty good deal for those of us on this other side of the Greenway to have, less clutter on the other side, and it's cool that we'll have, an official. I mean, maybe not official, but that will publicly allowed be to walk
permission
across there. And
put it that way.
Permission. Yeah, there's not an official trail, but there's permission.
Right.
And that's good enough.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Mr. Fraser. The only question I have is, how do you spell your last name, Mr. Fraser? With a Z or a I-S?
It's F-R-Z. Oh, sorry. F-R-A-Z-E-R. So
great.
Think,
okay, I got it right.
Blazer as in Trailblazer,
Yep.
and just put the F-R there instead of B-L. So
great. I got it right. Thank you.
Sure.
Just to confirm, was there anybody else who wanted to testify about this application?
There are no additional callers.
Okay, thank you. Any response from city staff?
No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Anything further from the applicant?
This is Rebecca. We're certainly happy to hear that people appreciate the environment and would like to walk the grounds, and we can support that. We just would not put in a formal trail.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I will close the hearing. I will reopen the hearing really quickly. For whoever wants to respond for the applicant, same question. You have the right to submit a final argument, written argument without any new evidence. Do you want to waive that if nothing is submitted during the next week of the open record period?
We would like to waive that, yes.
Great. So same thing. I will hold the record open for 1 week until May 24th at 5 o'clock for anybody to submit additional written testimony and evidence. Anything that anybody wants to receive to have to be physically received by the city by 5 o'clock. You can send it to Ms. Smith by email or snail mail. I will hold it open for another 8 days because of the holiday until June 1st for the applicant to submit a final written argument. If nothing is submitted by the 24th at 5 o'clock, I will close the record at that point and issue my decision. I will send my decision to the city. The city will send notice to the parties of record. So if you've testified orally or in writing, you'll be sure and receive a copy of my decision when it's issued. But that concludes our hearing for tonight. Thank you all for your attendance, and that concludes our hearing. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Night, everybody. Thanks, Keelan.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Keelan.
Sure thing.